Welcome. If you've found your way here, there's a reason. The cards have spoken, and they tell a story of transformation, longing, and a connection that refuses to fade. This reading is for someone who has walked through fire and emerged changed. Someone whose quiet strength is currently shaking another person to their core. The silence you've chosen isn't empty. It's heavy with meaning, and the person you've stepped back from is feeling every ounce of its weight. Let's begin. The first card that emerged speaks of willingness. Willing to try. This tells us that someone in your connection has reached a point where the risk of heartbreak feels less frightening than the risk of never knowing what could have been. They believe enough to risk hurt, and that belief is not nothing. It is everything. For the longest time, this person approached love with one foot always out the door. They kept their options open, their heart guarded, their true feelings buried beneath layers of protection. But something has shifted. The armor they wore for so long has started to feel suffocating rather than safe. They're beginning to understand that love without risk isn't love at all. It's just a transaction, an exchange of comfort for authenticity. This willingness didn't come easily. It arrived after nights of staring at ceilings, after moments when the memory of your voice hit them unexpectedly in the middle of ordinary days. They started to ask themselves what they were really protecting themselves from. The answer kept coming back to you. They were protecting themselves from the very thing they now realize they want most. What makes this willingness different from past half-hearted attempts is the depth of it. Before, they might have been willing to try as long as it didn't cost them too much. As long as they could maintain control. As long as they could walk away unscathed if things didn't work out. That's not where they are anymore. Now they're willing to try even if it means falling apart. Even if it means facing rejection. Even if it means discovering that they've lost you for good. This is significant because this person has historically chosen safety over depth. They've let fear write their story, and that story kept them isolated even in the midst of relationships. But your presence in their life changed something fundamental. You showed them what it feels like to be truly seen, and now that they've experienced that, going back to surface-level connections feels impossible. They're willing to try because trying is the only option that leads back to you. The second card reveals a turning point. An awakening arrived and changed everything. Nothing will ever be the same. This is the moment the universe intervened. Perhaps it came as a loss, a health scare, a dream that wouldn't let them sleep, or simply the crushing weight of missing you. Whatever form it took, it worked. It cracked them open. Awakenings are rarely gentle. They don't arrive with soft music and warm lighting. They come as earthquakes, as tidal waves, as the floor dropping out from beneath feet that thought they were on solid ground. For this person, the awakening was particularly brutal because it came with perfect clarity about what they had done. About how they had taken your love and treated it as optional, as something that would always be there waiting while they figured themselves out. The turning point showed them that love isn't a renewable resource that stays available indefinitely. It showed them that your patience, your understanding, your willingness to wait had limits. And they realized with horror that they may have found those limits. They may have pushed you past the point of return. This awakening changed their priorities completely. Things that once seemed important now feel meaningless. Distractions that used to occupy their time now feel hollow. They've started to see how much energy they poured into maintaining distance when they could have been building bridges. How much time they wasted protecting themselves from a love that was never the enemy. The most profound aspect of this turning point is that it revealed the true nature of your connection. Before, they might have categorized what you shared as a nice relationship, a pleasant chapter, something meaningful but ultimately replaceable. The awakening showed them that you are irreplaceable. That what existed between you wasn't just another love story. It was their love story. The one that would define every other relationship they ever had by comparison. Nothing will ever be the same because they can't go back to who they were before they knew what they were losing. They can't unsee the truth. They can't unfeel the regret. They can't pretend that walking away from you is anything other than the defining mistake of their life. The third card promises that withholding ends. No more holding back emotions. Ever. Full presence is their promise. This is perhaps the most dramatic shift in their energy. Where once they offered you crumbs of affection, carefully measured and timed to keep you close but not too close, they now want to offer everything. Emotional withholding was their default mode. It was how they maintained power. How they kept themselves safe. How they ensured that they would never be the one left behind, because they were always halfway out the door anyway. But this strategy has collapsed. The walls they built didn't keep them safe. They just kept them alone. Now they're experiencing something they've spent their whole life avoiding. Emotional flooding. All the feelings they suppressed are rising to the surface, and they're learning that emotions don't disappear just because you ignore them. They wait. They grow. They demand to be felt eventually. The promise of full presence is terrifying to them. It goes against every instinct they've developed. But they know now that partial presence was what destroyed what you had. They gave you just enough to keep you hoping, never enough to make you feel secure. They shared their thoughts but not their fears. Their time but not their truth. Their body but not their heart. That ends now. Or at least, they're ready for it to end. They want to show up completely, even if completely means showing you their broken parts. Even if it means admitting that they don't have it all figured out. Even if it means acknowledging that they need you more than they've ever needed anyone. This promise of presence extends into the future they're trying to imagine with you. They see conversations where nothing is held back. Conflicts where both people stay instead of one person shutting down. Intimacy that goes beyond the physical into the deeply vulnerable territory of two souls meeting without masks. Whether they can actually deliver on this promise remains to be seen. Old patterns die hard. The temptation to retreat when things get intense will always be there. But the desire to be different is genuine. The commitment to trying is real. And that counts for something. The fourth card speaks of absence. Your absence feels like lost light. They stumble in darkness now. This is where your power in this situation becomes clear. You may feel like the one who was left behind, the one who cared more, the one who was discarded. But the cards tell a different story. They tell of someone who is currently lost without the illumination you provided. Your presence in their life was more than companionship. It was guidance. It was warmth. It was the light that helped them see themselves more clearly. Without you, they've discovered how much of their sense of direction came from your influence. How much of their optimism was actually borrowed from your faith in them. How much of their self-worth was reinforced by the way you looked at them. The darkness they're experiencing isn't just sadness. It's disorientation. They've lost their reference point. The person who always made things make sense, even when nothing made sense, has stepped back. And suddenly they're realizing that all their own coping mechanisms, all their self-sufficiency, all their independence was partially an illusion maintained by the knowledge that you were there if they really needed you. Now they're facing the truth of what life looks like without your light. It's colder. It's more confusing. It's exhausting in a way they didn't expect. They find themselves making decisions and immediately wondering what you would think. Catching themselves wanting to share something and remembering that the sharing isn't welcome anymore. Reaching for comfort that no longer exists. This darkness is teaching them. It's showing them how much they took for granted. how often they assumed your light would always be available regardless of how little they contributed to keeping it burning. They're learning that light requires fuel, and they stopped feeding your connection long before you withdrew. The stumbling is literal as well as metaphorical. They're making mistakes in their daily life. Forgetting appointments. Losing things. Saying the wrong thing to the wrong person. Their focus is shattered because so much of their mental energy is consumed with thinking about you, wondering about you, worrying about what you're thinking and feeling. The fifth card indicates energy shifts. Something is moving between you both. Can you feel it yet? Even in separation, your connection remains active. It's not the static coldness of two people who have truly moved on. It's the charged space between magnets that have been turned to face each other. The potential is building. These energy shifts manifest in various ways. Perhaps you've been thinking of them more intensely lately, unable to explain why. Maybe you've seen signs that seem too coincidental to be random. Their name appearing everywhere. Songs that were yours coming on at significant moments. Dreams that feel more like visits. On their end, the shifts are even more pronounced. They're experiencing what can only be described as spiritual restlessness. A sense that something is about to happen even though nothing has changed in the physical world. An anticipation that borders on anxiety. A feeling that the current state of silence and distance cannot hold much longer. The energy between you is seeking resolution. It's pushing toward either reconciliation or final closure, and right now it's not clear which direction it will take. That's why this moment feels so precarious. So filled with potential. The universe is arranging something, and both of you can feel it. What's particularly interesting about these shifts is that they seem to respond to your internal state. When you focus on your own growth and healing, the energy toward them intensifies. When you release attachment to outcomes, they feel it and panic. Your evolution is literally pulling them forward, forcing them to keep up or be left behind. The question remains whether you can feel it. Many people in your position have shut down their sensitivity as a defense mechanism. Feeling the connection means feeling the pain of it, and so you've learned to numb yourself. But if you look closely, you'll notice the signs. The way certain thoughts arrive unbidden. The way your body responds to their name. The way time seems to behave strangely, compressing and expanding around memories of your time together. The sixth card celebrates your evolution. You survived the storm and grew stronger. Emotional mastery is yours now. This is crucial. This is why the dynamic has fundamentally changed. You're not the person they walked away from. You're someone new. Someone they don't fully know yet. Someone who might not have room for their old patterns anymore. The storm you survived wasn't just the breakup or separation. It was the entire relationship with someone who couldn't meet you where you were. It was loving someone who kept you guessing. It was pouring your heart into connections that always felt slightly out of reach. It was the slow erosion of your self-trust as you made excuses for their behavior and convinced yourself that if you just loved them enough, they would choose you fully. Surviving that storm required you to develop resources you didn't know you had. You learned to validate yourself instead of seeking their validation. You learned to comfort yourself instead of waiting for their comfort. You learned to trust your own perception instead of accepting their version of reality. These skills don't disappear when the storm passes. They become part of who you are. Emotional mastery means you're no longer at the mercy of your feelings. You can observe them without being controlled by them. You can grieve without being consumed by grief. You can love without losing yourself in that love. This is the transformation that has them so anxious. They sense that you don't need them anymore, not in the way you once did, and that changes everything. Your growth has been internal as much as external. You've done the work. The journaling, the therapy, the spiritual practice, the hard conversations with yourself. You've faced the parts of you that were drawn to unavailable people and asked why. You've healed wounds you didn't know you had. You've become someone who chooses themselves first, and that energy is unmistakable. This evolution is attractive and terrifying to them. Attractive because they can sense your strength. Terrifying because they know they no longer have the power they once had. They can't manipulate your emotions because you're too aware. They can't make you feel small because you've grown too tall. They can't promise change without delivering because you'll actually leave. The 7th card reveals their deepest truth. Marriage material. They see forever when they see you. This vision includes only you. This is what they've been hiding from themselves. The reason none of their other options worked. The explanation for why they couldn't fully commit to anyone else. You were always the standard. You were always the one they compared everyone to. You were always the person they imagined growing old with, even when they were pretending otherwise. Seeing you as marriage material doesn't necessarily mean they want to rush to the altar. It means they recognize that what you offer is rare and precious. It means they've stopped looking for something better because they know it doesn't exist. It means they're ready to build something permanent, something rooted, something that can weather future storms. This vision of forever is specific to you. It's not a generic desire for partnership. It's a desire for partnership with you. Your particular laugh. Your specific way of seeing the world. The unique combination of strength and softness that you embody. They've tried to find substitutes, and they've failed. The universe has made it clear that you are irreplaceable. What's changed is that they're no longer frightened by this vision. Before, the intensity of their feelings for you triggered their avoidance. It felt safer to sabotage something good than to risk the vulnerability of truly having it. Now they've seen what life looks like without you, and it's worse than any fear they had about commitment. The vision includes only you because they've finally stopped lying to themselves about their options. They've stopped pretending that there are other people who could make them feel what you make them feel. They've stopped convincing themselves that settling for less would be safer. They know now that the only real risk is a life without you in it. The 8th and final card exposes the root of everything. The source. Their ego created all the distance. Never your fault. Never. This is the truth that has been hardest for them to face. The distance, the coldness, the withdrawal, the inability to fully show up, all of it came from their own fear. Their own insecurity. Their own unhealed wounds. They blamed circumstances. They blamed timing. They blamed you for wanting too much, feeling too deeply, moving too fast. But the cards reveal what you probably always knew. It was never about you. It was always about their own internal battle between the part of them that wanted love and the part of them that was terrified of it. Their ego told them that needing you was weakness. That loving you fully would give you power over them. That if they showed you how much they cared, you would eventually use it against them. These weren't rational thoughts, but they felt real. They felt like protection. And so they created distance as a defense mechanism, not realizing that they were actually attacking the very thing they wanted to preserve. The relief of this realization is mixed with shame. Relief because it means the connection was real. The love was genuine. The potential was actual and not imagined. Shame because they wasted so much time, hurt you so unnecessarily, and came so close to losing everything because of their own unhealed trauma. Never your fault. The cards emphasize this because you need to hear it. You've spent too long wondering what you could have done differently. If you had been less emotional, less demanding, less intense, less yourself. The answer is nothing. You could have been perfect, and their ego still would have found reasons to create distance. The work they needed to do was internal, and you couldn't do it for them. Now, as we bring this reading together, we see the full picture. A person who was lost in their own defenses, who took your love for granted, who created distance to protect themselves from the very intimacy they craved. A separation that became the catalyst for their awakening. A silence from you that is currently breaking down their remaining resistance. And an energy between you that is building towards something, though the outcome remains unwritten. They're anxious because they can feel your evolution. They know you're not waiting anymore. They understand that if they want you, they have to become worthy of you, and they're not sure if they can. But they're willing to try. That willingness is new. That willingness is everything. The turning point has happened. The awakening is real. The withholding is ending. But the absence you've created is the teacher they needed. The energy is shifting, responding to your growth, pulling them toward a choice. Will they finally show up completely? Will they deliver on the promise of full presence? Will they overcome the ego that has sabotaged every important connection in their life? Only time will tell. Only their actions will reveal the truth. But the cards suggest that something is coming. A reaching out. A conversation. A moment of vulnerability that will determine whether this connection transforms into what it was always meant to be, or finally releases both of you to move forward separately. What you do with that moment is up to you. You've evolved. You've mastered your emotions. You know your worth. Whatever choice you make will be the right one, because it will be made from wholeness rather than need. From clarity rather than confusion. From the powerful place of someone who has survived the storm and grown stronger. Their anxiety is the price of their realization. Let them feel it. Let it teach them what their words never could. Your silence is not punishment. It's protection. It's wisdom. It's the boundary that says you will no longer accept less than you deserve. And if they want to cross that boundary, they must come correct. Fully present. Completely honest. Willing to risk everything for the chance to love you properly. The story isn't over. The cards have spoken, and they speak of possibility. Of transformation. Of love that refuses to die even when it's been neglected. But possibility is not promise. The next chapter depends on choices yet to be made. Yours and theirs.